So thank you for coming. I'd like to start this our 17th time we get together and our 17th summit here in Austin now. And I'd like to start with some words that I wrote and just a little message, a little letter that I basically wrote to us as creatives, as creative professionals. We're gonna follow that up with a beautiful meditation by Miss Marce, and then we just get back in it. All right, dear friends. In a world riddled with complexities and challenges, it's easy to feel overwhelmed by problems that seem unsurmountable. These issues, often mirrored in ethical dilemmas or institutional inefficiencies, appear too vast for any one person to address. We are often led to believe that the solutions lie solely in the hands of major corporations or political leaders, leaving us feeling disconnected and powerless. But amidst the landscape of grand scale problems, we encounter smaller, daily incongruities that touch our lives more directly. These are the moments when we are unknowingly taken what isn't ours, or when inadvertently the voices are suppressed and the dreams of those around us are squashed. It's in these moments that we find the true opportunity for change. The real power for transformation lies not in the hands of a few, but in the collective strength of individuals, people like you and me. When we democratize big ideas, we shift the balance of power from the of corporations and the echelons of political realms to the grassroots level. We take control of our future, one small step at a time. Imagine a world where each of us actively participates in shaping our communities, where supporting local creatives isn't just a choice, but a proud commitment, where our local and regional communities are bolstered by our active engagement and support. This is not just a dream, it's a tangible reality that we can create together. Let's stand side by side, sharing our stories, our knowledge, weaving a tapestry of collective wisdom. It's time to democratize decision making to bring about a change that resonates from the individual to the global stage. By choosing to shop locally, support our regional artisans, and share our experiences, we're not just making a statement, we are actively participating in a movement that values the individual, cherishes the community, and believes in the power of our collective action. Where creative products blur the lines that divide us and stand together united because we can stand for what matters to us every day. Together, let's embark in this journey to democratize the options of our communities have to change the world. Our choices, our actions, and our voices matter. Let's use them to create a future where we all. So, that being said, it's a very complex kind of like thing I wrote, but it just boils down to very simple idea. We as creatives know what makes us happy. We don't need the world to tell us what happiness is. We don't need Instagram to tell us what happiness is. We don't need the media or corporations or marketing campaigns. If you like to do music and you're good at it and you create that an entrepreneurial endeavor, you're golden. And if you make a living doing that, you're a success. That is the difference. That is the difference that divides us from the 90% of the rest of humanity. We are the creatives, we are the voice, we are the culture. And the more we stand together, the more knowledge we share, the less they'll bring us down. So I'd like to introduce Marsolistica first of all, because it's gonna get a little sometimes emotional in these next hours, a little bit tense. We're just going to share the good, the bad, the ugly, everything, and I want to give the voice to her so we can have a little balance in this process.
Hi everyone, my name is Marcel, like you just heard, and I'm gonna guide a little meditation. If it's your first time doing a meditation, don't worry, there's no right or wrong answer here. I just want you to have both of your feet on the ground, relax, and you're gonna close your eyes. Close your eyes, and you're gonna start breathing with me, inhaling through the nose, holding for 1, 2, 3. Exhale deeply through the mouth. We're gonna do that 2 more times. Inhale deeply through the nose, hold for 1, 2, exhale through the mouth. Inhale, 1, 2, exhale. Now, I want you to imagine you're in your favorite place in the world. It can be the beach, the mountains, your mom's house. And I want you to start picturing every single detail. What's the color of the floor? What can you smell? If you're outdoors, feel the wind on your cheeks. Look at your hands. What are you wearing? And wherever you are, I want you to imagine a path right in front of you. At the end of that path, you're going to see a mirror and you're going to start walking towards it. You see an image in that mirror, but you can't really tell what it is. As you get closer, you realize it's yourself when you were 10 years old. That's the representation of your inner child. You're going to see yourself smiling at yourself, and you're going to see how your inner child starts drawing on a piece of paper and starts coloring this image. These drawings that we used to color, and we used to try to stay inside the lines. And you're going to tell your inner child it's okay to color outside of the lines. You're going to remind your inner child that it's okay not to follow the rules. And you're going to tell him or her that you're sorry for not letting him or her color outside of the lines in different moments of your life. You're going to say you're safe now. You can do whatever makes you happy, whatever makes you creative. And I'm going to honor you through every decision in my life. Now, you're going to take a deep breath, inhale through the nose, exhale through the mouth. And before you open your eyes, I want you to have an intention for this event. What do you want to feel? What do you want to convey when you talk to people? How are you going to honor this inner child? Remember to not judge, to be open, to share, and to have fun like you used to when you were little. You're going to take one last deep breath, inhaling through the nose, exhale deep through the mouth, and slowly you can open your eyes. Welcome back, and I hope you have fun.
Gracias. Thank you for that, Marce. So we're gonna start with our first panel. Our first panel is gonna be a conversation to basically share experiences of people that in some way have gone against the grain. You know, what does against the grain mean? It means that you walked in a different path, but you also didn't just fulfill a creative product, but you created a business. You worked with the big boys, but you stayed true to yourself. And that's a mission that's sometimes very hard in what we do. And I'd like to introduce these. I would love for each one of us to introduce ourselves, and I'll start so you can basically understand, you know, what the dynamic is, and thank these two gentlemen, which are locals, and which is very important for us to always, you know, collaborate locals and national and international talent, and we're just gonna do a little dynamic where in 3 minutes we tell our personal story of how we got or what we do as a creative product. Okay, so my name is Danny. My name is Danny Osuna, and 20 years ago I started creating experiential experiences at marketing and digital marketing and content. I come from an engineering background, and I fell in love with creative. And as I developed myself in the craft of producing, I fell in love more with creating and with writing and with producing and editing and video and all these other things. And I got to work with the biggest brands in the world, like ABI and Heineken and Jack Daniels, and everything seems like alcohol and party, but that's kind of like my DNA. But what really the point of independence for me was the point where I kind of said, stop. I love corporates. I love strategy. I love all these things in what the opportunities that they can bring to me, but they're not respecting me as an individual. So I do the same thing now, but as an independent, fully independent. I don't work for corporates. I don't work for political parties anymore, and I don't work for anybody but the dreams of my partners and myself. And thank you, Edward. We don't have to clap after.
So my name is Edgar Rico. I am a chef and restaurateur here in the city of Austin. I am a taqueria, essentially. I am one of the first ever James Beard Award winners being a taquero. to have ever won the foundation's award, and one of the first Latinos ever to really win that award, which is pretty incredible. I specialize in the arts of culinary. That is what my passion is. At a very early age, I knew I was going to be a chef and decided to follow that passion, and spent 14 years grinding it out in kitchens all throughout America and throughout the world, and decided to finally open up shop here in the city of Austin. And, decided to go really against the grain by having no investors or just putting literally my life savings on the line. And it was a big bet that very fortunately paid off. And, we, after opening the restaurant, started to really kind of start focusing more on the local side of the community with philanthropy. We opened up the city's first ever free fridge, which is a local community fridge that serves a lot of our neighbors that are across the street in Section 8. We live directly right across the street, and that is a big, support for some of those neighbors and through other people throughout the city who just, sometimes just need a quick meal or, might be down on their luck that day or week. And they can just always come through that fridge, and they know that there'll generally be food there like 95% of the time. So that is something kind of more recent that we've been starting to put more of our energy towards as well. But yeah, at the end of the day, still am a chef and really love cooking in whatever way possible. But tacos is definitely my passion.
My name is Edgar Castillo. I'm local here. Lived here my whole life, and I'm a co-owner of a company called Figure It Out. I've been in the music industry for 15 years. Started out as a party boy and figured out that this is how I could make money. And a long time ago, I realized like nobody else was doing this, and I walked into a meeting and realized I was the only brown boy there, and started working and made sure that the room looked like me. I've been blessed over the last decade to make that room really look like me and have co-partners in my business now that that I started with back then. We started out as 20-year-old kids who wanted to start doing parties with artists. At that time, their names were like J. Cole and Kendrick Lamar and things like that, and they were banned from clubs in Austin. And we started throwing music festivals with them years later. So we went from 100-person shows to 50,000-person shows. And then when COVID hit, I realized that I've been doing this for too long for giant corporations, and I wasn't doing it for myself. And I looked around and realized how many people I brought on and hired, and we've been blessed to be around. A lot of them are here today, and decided to leave. Scary thing to do when you're in the middle of a pandemic. And started a company. I'd always been told I never went to college or finished it because I had a kid early and never got to do the things I wanted to do. So from the beginning, I was always told to figure it out. So I named my company Figure It Out, and I called two partners that I had started with early on and looked at as kind of like role models that were a lot younger than me, and said, would y'all want to be down to figure it out with me? And so we literally started in a restroom that had been converted to an office for us. And over the last 3 or 4 years, we've been lucky to grow from making, let's say, like $5,000 over the year to, they making this our full life and growing as a company and growing as a team. So overall, if I was going to give my story, I'm a party boy who likes to make money off of that. I throw companies for brands, throw companies for events. I've been lucky. In that time, I met a friend named Gabby. She was starting a bar and a restaurant. Gabby's gone on to become one of the bosses of Austin, and company and friendships like that have, stayed with us the whole time. Like now we're lucky to be her partner. We've grown. Last year, 2 years ago, when South by, nobody believed in it. We stayed by them, and this last year they told us they were gonna ask us to become on as their event producers for all their major events. And here we are, just three brown boys living in Austin doing that. So we have a lot of accomplishments. We don't like to talk about them. Hopefully over the next 6 months, we get to work with our friend Edgar here and start another food truck with him. So
Stay tuned.
stay tuned. But yeah, that's my quick story.
So going forward, I'm going to ask you very succinct questions, and you can chime in and say whichever one wants to start. They're very important moments sometimes that we have, or ways of doing things, because this is about sharing our bread and butter, our secret sauce, and helping others learn from that and our experiences. So, Edgar, when was the pivotal moment that led you to embark on your journey? Was it a moment? Do you remember was it like a phase in your life, a year? what was happening in your life?
Yeah, so for me, probably about now 7 years ago, I was living in Los Angeles, and at that point had been working for other chefs. At that point, had a vast variety of different experiences, working from like Michelin-starred restaurants to like diners in Los Angeles, and had worked many stations all throughout, from like a prep cook all the way up to being like a sous chef, but had never done it for myself. And I started kind of asking myself these questions of like, what's that next step that you want to do, and like really what brings you happiness. And for me, the food that always brought me happiness, and like one of the best memories I always had, was being at a food truck, being at a like taqueria late night, 2 a.m. Tacos are some of those foods that for me, just I think it's like a community kind of thing, whether you're having like an asada with your friends in the backyard, or you're just chilling at a food truck at 2 a.m. because you've been sauced up from a long night of whatever may have happened. But yeah, I kind of really started asking myself that question of where, if I was going to do it, where would you do it, and how could you do it independently without having anyone compromise that vision. And Austin for me just kind of stood out. I ended up taking a random trip here in 2015 and just fell in love with the city. It was definitely much so like a taco town that I, could see. Like breakfast tacos weren't really a thing in LA, and it was just this very taco centric culture that Austin really spoke to me, and it was affordable. I knew if I was going to do it, I wouldn't need investors to do it. I was just going to really willing to throw everything on the line and roll the dice and see what happens. And, it was a very awesome gamble that fortunately ended up paying off for us. Me and my wife, Sarah Martin Biggie, she, was the other co-anchor on this that really helped, get the story out. I'm, for myself, like my skills are definitely in the kitchen. That's where I excel. She does all the marketing end of it and the whole finance part of it, and figures that part of it out. But it's a very good yin and yang that we have that really kind of complement each other's strengths and weaknesses. That I feel like is kind of essential when you're starting your own business. You have to kind of jump out into the unknown, and wherever your feet land, it's going to be a little scary place in the beginning, but if you really love what you're doing, it'll all kind of figure itself out eventually.
Same question to you, brother. So basically, what moment did it click? What was the aha moment where you figured out that you needed to do this journey and take it?
Part one, I was working full time for the government, and I hated it. I would get on these elevators, and everyone would talk about how much time they had left, and so they would say I got 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, and I realized that I was blessed to be in this job a lot earlier than everybody else, and it was prison. And so when I went to the first meeting for concerts, I was like, fuck everything I'm doing, I'm leaving, I'm gonna go do that. Part two was when I was in COVID, and I had done that for a long time, and I realized that like I could do nothing else. I was working for the biggest company in the world. I was being told to go live in New York for a month. I didn't want to go do that. And a month at like every other month I was supposed to live in New York, and I knew what made me happy was in Austin, and I said, fuck it, I'm gonna leave. And I didn't know what else I was doing, but I knew that when I said it, I was happy. And so those were two moments in my life where happiness over everything. And I remember my mom the first time telling me I fucked up my whole life. Sorry if I cuss too much. I screwed up my whole life because I left the city job, and on paper I was supposed to be able to retire at 40 years old, which is like pretty young, and live the rest of my life like them, like where I worked somewhere else. And then I was like, no, I'm gonna go work for this guy who throws concerts and go hang out with rappers. And none of that made sense back then. But now you look at the world, and I think part two on the other side was when I went to Houston and I saw in 2019 what's now popular. Like in 2019, Mexican artists weren't the most celebrated thing, especially Hispanic artists weren't the most celebrated thing. And I went there into Houston and I saw kids who dressed like rappers going to Spanish shows, and I knew that what was going to happen again. And I started working with Latin artists, started working with people like that, started encouraging that to the clients I was working with. And it's been a cool journey over the last 4 years to watch that go from like disencouraged people telling me you work in rap music, like work in rap music, that's what you do, to people calling me every day saying like, how do I get to these artists? How do I get a hold of them? And that all started as like friendship. Like the first partnership we did was with Boost Mobile, and I had to beg them, and they didn't realize like they would have like a 600 person line around the corner. So I guess my gut intention is knowing when I'm right and knowing when I'm happy and saying fuck it and doing it. Those are the things I do.
Gracias. Thank you. So next question. You told me you depend a lot with your wife Sarah, and she runs the marketing and financials, all these things. Did you guys? And you told me about risking everything. So this takes us perfectly into this next thing. So when you started out, you risked everything, but was there any point where you actually had to diversify your energy, your efforts? So okay, you might do tacos, but you have to do all these other things too to get by.
Oh yeah, I mean, when we were starting our business, we had to get very creative in terms of how we were gonna get our name out there. So, I mean, since we had no marketing budget, it was literally Instagram and kind of faking it till you making it. And we decided to start getting into other avenues outside of what we could do within the restaurant, since we weren't able to cook out of there. We had to get all our permits, all that fully ready to go. And that was like a 9-month process for us to get our restaurant ready. So you're spending money for 9 months on rent on a building you can't use. You got to start getting some kind of a cash income. So we got on Airbnb experiences. We were teaching tortilla classes. We were teaching like Iron Chef cooking competitions that we would do for people. And that was like a little kind of almost like guerrilla marketing we were doing for ourselves. Like at that point, we were cooking for like 3 to 4 people a week would come to our house, and we would teach them how to cook, show them how to make tortillas. And these people, now years later in our business, people have come back and seen our business and seen like the growth and being like, oh shoot, I remember you when we were cooking at your house, and now you kind of have this full restaurant. So that was like a cool little way to kind of, get some name out there and just get a little bit of extra cash flow. And then also too, just like catering too. That was another way I was, I never really wanted to do that in the beginning, but, eventually when you're got everything on the line, you got to find a way to make some kind of an income. And, we got to do a lot of catering and a lot of events, from like baby showers to weddings to food festivals and everything in between, that kind of also in the long run, it ended up being like another marketing tool for us as well. People before we had opened 9 months prior already kind of knew who we were at that point. They had they knew Nixta, that name, from seeing it all around the city, seeing it all around, food festivals and all that, and obviously social media. And, by the time we opened, we were down to our last $500 in our bank account the day we opened. And we knew that if we didn't hit that first week, like, we didn't know how we were going to make payroll, but we were very fortunate that day one, there was like 100 people in line on our opening day, and we never looked back after that.
How did you do it? So the basic question is, what did you do? How did you do it?
Basically, it's diversify kind of like your efforts from core.
So when we started, Daniel, who's in the audience right now, called me. First day I started, I was like, fuck it, I'm going to do it. Again, story of my life. And Daniel called me the next day, and I said, are you down to keep working with me? And our other partner called me the next day, and he was like, I got to leave this ranch I'm living on. I said, okay, come. I don't have any money, but come, and we'll see what happens. And we started out very early. Same situation as Edgar. Like, we didn't know how the money was going to happen. We didn't know where it was going to come from. And people knew me for a different lifestyle. They knew me from working at a mega agency. And here I am by myself. So it took a year for people. It took a year for us to figure out how we were going to address the world. And it's taken 3 years for us to get where we're at now. But early on during COVID, remember, people wouldn't leave LA or New York. And we were in Texas, where the world had been open for 4 months already. So all of a sudden, we were shipped all over the country, and we were working for everybody, which is very non-traditional for an agency. Like, to go in and to pretend that you're another group is pretty non-traditional. But we said, we'll do it. And it served us. Like, where people were saying no, we were saying yes. It served us for the first year, and then we realized we wanted to start doing things on our own. Along that way, friends of mine have been starting an Instagram called When We're What, and I've been friends with them for 2 or 3 years. And we sat at their office, and I said, okay, we want to work with y'all. They hadn't taken a paying gig yet, and now, like, we decided back then we want to be paid partners. So they were allowed to become one of the biggest marketing agencies in Austin. At the same time, we were allowed to become one of the biggest, like, in real life agencies in Austin. So, like, not being so, like, stuck on what exactly we wanted to do, and being willing to say yes or say no, or to see where things should go, is what's really saved our ass this whole time. Finding friends like Edgar who were like, people are just telling us like, you need to meet this guy. They all look alike and y'all should be family, has been like really beneficial to us. And then like, to me, it's always about not being the smartest, but working the hardest, because there's always going to be somebody smarter than you, but then nobody can ever work harder than you. So like anytime I step into a room, whether somebody's 18 years old as an intern or 10 years older than me, I assume they want to work harder than me, so I got to work harder than them, and that's my situation every time. And if you're not willing to work harder than me, then like I'll just beat you and I'll win. And if you want to work for me and you don't do that, then I'll just move on without you. And that's never stopped me, and that's how I always live my life, and that's how I always continue, and it's always worked for us. Like I think that's just the situation for us.
Gracias. So the same question give to myself. So the moment I think I got to that point where you kind of have to figure it out was I used to do email marketing for fun. This was 2003. It was before the time of MailChimp or whatever all these other technologies existed, and I started doing shows, and I started getting sponsorships from companies like Corona and Coca-Cola and stuff like that, and they did give me $5,000 for a banner. And I didn't understand the logistics of the value system, so I would buy guitars and have the bands autograph the guitar, and a couple of guitars actually, and I paid rent like that for a while too, because I'd sell the guitars online on eBay. But what I do is I create little databases, and then I'd go and tell the sponsor, hey, this is your database, and they didn't know what to do with it, so I would charge them 4,000 pesos at that time, which is $200, maybe a little more, but because of that time was different exchange rate, but maybe $400, and that month I charged them $400 a month to send their email marketing to Modelo Light and Corona Light and all these big brands, and I got to a point where I actually opened the Facebook pages or groups of Modelo and Corona and these big beers, and because digital marketing didn't exist like it does now, and that got me to this trust point with these brands that they gave me a chance to do a tour with Modelo, and I didn't have the money for it or anything, and it was just going city to city, just scraping by to do something, and yeah, that was the point of selling guitars to fulfill the concerts. But okay, so next question is, starting on with you, what role do you think community plays in your entrepreneurial development in your day-to-day?
Yeah. I mean, community for us is huge. I mean, community is how we have been able to stick around and what us grow our business. A big community, we rely on a lot of, our homies who are the same color as us, who are black and brown people who, kind of have that same understanding and that same kind of lifestyle growing up. We're very fortunate to know friends from when, where, what, figure it out, and other local, Latino businesses. One big one right now, and I would say is our direct source of community, is the Taco Mafia. You guys don't know who we are. We're a group of taqueros here in Austin, Texas. We got a show out right now on PBS, actually. Check it out. It's just episode 8 is out, season finale. But, yeah, I mean, early on during the snowstorm that happened here in Austin, Texas in 2021, community, that was the first time we really got to see community really band together here in this city of Austin. It was so beautiful to see so many people coming together for a bigger kind of understanding, for a bigger calling, whether it was donating food to people, or whether it was getting food to people or cooking for people. That was where you really saw just the whole community come together. It didn't matter. I remember being inside of our kitchen that at the end of the week after cooking for over 8,000 people that we cooked for, that last day, we happened to have like a big kind of push that all got brought together by one organization that's called Tank Proof, and another one that is called, I forget, but Tank Proof was the big one from the Bros Fresh. We essentially put out a call to all our local community members and just asked people if they were willing to volunteer to help us do any efforts, whether it was cooking, whether it was distributing food. And we had 180 volunteers show up to our doorstep that day, and that's where you truly saw the power of community that helped, just people in aid when they needed it most. And that, propelling on that 2 years later, now we still see all those volunteers that come through that day that, still continue to come, frequent your establishment. And, all because we decided to do something, where we didn't ask anything from anyone. We didn't ask for $1 from anyone for these meals or anything. And now you kind of see that kind of pay back full by people supporting your business. There was even one of our community members that, through us doing that, decided to pay our staff. They paid our payroll for 2 weeks because they were so, in awe of what we were doing for our community. And, to see that give back, from community members, that's just one of those moments where you're like, damn, like, at the end of the day, government, they're never going to have your back. The people that are going to have your back every single day are the people that are within your inner circle. Those are the people that are going to take care. You got to take care of, because it will all come back full circle no matter what. And just having those relationships with those people and continuing to foster those relationships, ends up, sometimes saving your own business. And it's just really beautiful to see the power of community and what it can do. You just really give a fuck for people more than anything.
I think my community story is pretty much the same. So I grew up here my whole life. My mom grew up here her whole life. My grandma grew up here her whole life. My great grandpa grew up here his whole life. So I'm blessed to have a lot of family here. We didn't grow up with a lot of money, so I grew up pretty much a homeless kid in the south side of Austin, Texas, born and raised my whole life. So being proud of where I'm from and seeing a lot of my family have nothing, and then being in a world where it's kind of easy to see something has been a big part of my life. Being able to enable my community, whether that's my friends, my cousins, my siblings, friends, and partners, has been a big part of my whole life. And then part two is Edgar didn't realize when the storm happened, somehow I got put into where I live at in Dove, feeding people, and the only people that were cooking was his restaurant. We didn't even know each other, so I got brought a pallet full of food basically to feed those springs. And I didn't even know him at that time. I didn't even know if the food was good or not, but we were feeding neighbors and everything. So community is a huge part for me because I grew up here. My family's grown up here basically with nothing, and this community has allowed me and my future family to have something. So I think about that all the time. I think about that with the decisions that I'm making and who I'm bringing alongside me and things like that. I think about what we can look like. There's no reason that Dove or the East Side can't look like Westlake, or we can't be that wealthy in our own lifestyles. It's just what we've been taught our whole life. So when I think about community, I think about the people who are close to me. I think about the people who've affected my life and how I want to affect the future. So that's my community story. Great.
In your right now, we saw this great response of community and the importance of community in your life and professional life. But how do you think the creative community, the community of our like-minded friends, of people that are actually in the same boat as we are, how do you think we can band together to help other creatives fulfill their passion? That doesn't mean anything that you're doing. It means do you think that there's a way that we all can band together and help other creative professionals?
Yeah, 1,000,000%. I mean, I feel like you as inspiring and bringing up that next generation, because you can't be locked in your own box thinking that you are the only one that's ever going to do this, because eventually there was going to be someone younger than you that's going to take that. And if you continue to build that person up and those journeys and kind of showing them, you will eventually, hopefully, you create this thing that you're building wealth together, and that you're building a true empire together. And by continuing to do that, especially with people that are within your kind of socioeconomic kind of same living, and especially, I mean, for ourselves at our restaurant, I mean, we like to kind of go against the grain in terms of who we put in management. We most restaurants, they wouldn't put someone that maybe is Spanish speaking in a management position, but we know for us, the people that work for most restaurants, if you don't know, are ran by Hispanic people, brown people. We run restaurants, and we do that really fucking well, better than anyone else. So why most of the times when you go into most restaurants, the management people are always white. It makes no sense to me that how come we aren't putting Latino people in those positions? And by us doing that, it creates this well-being and this kind of comfort for all our staff members there, where they feel like, oh shit, I see someone else that is of that same person that came from Mexico maybe, and they've been put in that position. And I don't know, I think by doing that, it helps kind of hopefully break that kind of barrier and the barrier to entry to thinking that you have to have gone to college. Like, nah, I think for us, we try and put it that, like, if you're willing to put in the time and you're willing to put in, the passion that goes into becoming a cook or a chef or a restaurateur, like, those dividends will start to pay off. But, it's not an easy journey by any means, but yeah, it's kind of how it goes.
Yeah, your question was how can creators band together to help other people, the next person.
Next generation, yeah.
So I think one, realizing that there's a lot of money in the world. I think as brown people and as minorities, you're taught that like the money you get is yours, and anybody next to you is competing with you when there's billions of dollars in the world. So there's no need to always fight the next guy. And then I think as long as you're a hard worker and you're a consistent worker and you do what you say you're gonna do and you don't lie, then like it'll come for you. Like it won't even be your speed that it happens. Like be willing to do what people ask you to do. Be willing to do what you say you're gonna do. Be consistent. Like I don't care. As the other side, the person who's paying you, I don't care. If you're the best artist and you show up a day early and you do what you said you're gonna do, I'm gonna call you every time. So like I think being willing to have conversations like that with other creatives, being willing to like call another creative who might just be a little better at you than something that like somebody's called you for, so that the blessing can be there for you next time is important. And being willing, like I said, just to work hard is what shows up in the world most of the time for everybody. And sometimes you get screwed, but it won't be every time. And then being willing to call that next creative next to you, or being willing to be friends. When again, I'll keep referring to Kobe because it's when we kicked off, but I realized one time I looked around and I realized like all these artists who were living in Austin who had just moved here in 2019 didn't know each other, which was weird to me. Like other singers didn't know each other, other producers didn't know each other, and it's because we had all been working in our own bubbles. So I asked to throw a party where we just introduced each other, and it was cool to see those artists. I had to make them drink and have fun and do things, but it was cool to see them go on to the world and create music and do things.
You want some tequila?
Maybe, but it was cool. It was cool to see them like not need us, and they went on to create music. They went on to do things without us, and so like I think that's where you have to be willing to encourage a creative. You have to be willing to say yes as a creative. You have to be willing to work as a creative. Like no matter how cool you are, nobody cares. Like literally don't care. Just do what you say you're gonna do and realize that, and like don't be, I don't know how to say it, be so sensitive because we're all sensitive, but like just do what you say you're gonna do. I think half the time in the creative side of the world, and you'll get there.
Awesome. So I'd like to open the floor. If anybody has any sort of question, this is the time. Again, this is our MO is sharing fully and ask us anything, literally anything, entrepreneurship wise. Who is Marta? No. Basically, I just if anybody has a question, now is the time, or we go to closing remarks.
If you could tell us about the hardest time that you've had to, go through. What was your biggest challenge, or what was your lowest low in your story, and how you managed to get out of it?
Man, I mean, kind of shit. Something that just happened to us literally a few months ago. 3 months ago, the city of Austin tried to shut us down. It was some weird issue that happened with the permitting, that there was a AC system that was installed in our building illegally in 2018. We ended up opening up, and somehow the city of Austin didn't catch that there was an AC system installed there. 4 years later, us into business, we have been very fortunate to have won all these accolades, and to essentially have the rug pulled up from underneath us literally halted our business for 3 weeks, where we were making no cash flow and we were literally like sitting ducks. Again, community is one of those things that we were very fortunate to banded together. We were able to raise $100,000 on our GoFundMe that helped secure, us being there for a few more months, and for us to be able to pay engineers and architects to make some drawings. Essentially, that's what we paid for. But that was one of those lows that you just, essentially where you've essentially been halted from making money from something that you thought was okay. But then 2 weeks later, ended up having the highest high of my life by getting flown out to New York for winning like Food and Wine's Best New Chef in America. Like it's one of those like parallels where you're like, holy shit, like is everything that I built about to crumble right now? Like, and then seeing like the way the community banded together and like seeing that the community really had your back in a time of need where this was literally like our livelihoods were on the line. If this money wouldn't have been raised, I wouldn't be here talking to y'all right now. Like I'd probably be cooking somewhere at a line cook or out of this country. But yeah, that's it's still every single day we're getting through this. We just got all our permits finally passed, and we're about to start all this construction for it. But even through all the highs, there's still like some lows that happen every now and then. And I was getting in a funk for a few weeks where I definitely felt like I was depressed for a minute, just because everything you worked for, you thought you were secure, and then something like that overnight literally changed your life. And it's very humbling to say that the community has our back, and we're very fortunate to be here in the city of Austin because of it.
Unfortunately, I have a very similar story. 5 months ago, I was at work, didn't feel good. Next thing I knew, I woke up in the hospital 2 months later. I had a stroke and died while I was at the office. And I realized at that moment that everything that I had worked for the last 3 years was over, and everyone that I was dependent on me, I let down. And the same thing happened. Community reached out. People had said like people are going to help you, and I said no. But the people in Austin didn't let me say no, and they reached out. They made sure that like on the first side I was health taken care of, my family was taken care of, and then like second part, my team reached out and they took over, and they made things better than we'd ever been. They made things stronger than we'd ever been. And on the corporate side, like people reached out and they saw that like here's this group and here's Ed who we know, but like these motherfuckers are badass. Like the guys I got around me are murderers, and the team I had around me were badass. So it was a bad moment. I forgot how to speak. I forgot how to read. I forgot how to talk. I forgot my memory. And over the last 5 months, I've been able to really recover from that. But I wouldn't be able to do that with the people that are around me, without the community who invested into me being able to go into really expensive, rehabilitation. So like that was a low in the middle of our high. For reference, we had just been the biggest agency at South by. We had people were doing 2 or 3 events. We did 30 almost. Before us, there was no events at Revival. I saw this lawn and was like, we should do things here. And so we grew this company so big, and all of a sudden it was over. And so being able to recover from that, having the people around you to recover from that, was a low and a high at the same time. And in these last 5 months, we've grown bigger than we've ever been. We've hired more people than we've ever hired. So like it was similar to Edgar. Like it was one of those moments I never expected. I could never have expected in my life. Could have never asked for, but it became to be one of our bigger moments, and it made everyone around me bigger. It made me bigger, better. So like it was a low, but at the same time it was a high. And when I was a kid, my grandma told me that you can't be high without a low, and I never understood what that meant to that moment, because how are you gonna have a high if you've never experienced something bad? How are you gonna have something good? And how are you gonna experience something bad if you've never experienced something good? And I took that moment, and we've never stopped since then. And here I am, able to talk again, able to read again. And you might see me taking notes, but it's because those are things that I have to do nowadays to live the life that I want to live. And so that was my low. That was my low and my high at the same time, and like my blessing. Yeah. So here I am still.
Does anybody else have a question?
You haven't answered mine.
I got fucked by individuals, but also understand and actually have helped me to see how we get fucked by corporates, as sometimes we see them as clients, and we're very excited to have these big checks coming in, but at the same time, right now in the States, I think they're paying T90, T60, something like that. In Mexico, they're paying T180. So that means you have to finance big corporates. You have to finance them, and that just really reaffirmed my mission to become more independent and less dependent on these big corporates that really don't care about us. And usually, your client, your manager, or the director, they might be good people in the bottom, but they really don't understand your plight. They've never had risks at all. They've never been entrepreneurs. They've never had that sense. They just want their next job. and you have to start seeing them as not part of your community but as clients. And I went to the extreme and said I don't want these clients anymore. And I even had like the vice president of ABI once tell me like, hey Danny, we want you to take over the north of Mexico for all our events. I'm like, nope, I'm done. I don't want to do that. I don't want to work for you, because even though it is very good money, it's very big checks, it's not for me anymore, because you or what you represent didn't have my back when I needed it. And yeah, so I believe in projects that are more ours and more authentic, and that's ours.
Thank you. You three are great.
If you're creative and you live here, there's people in this crowd you should meet. So that's Rick over there in the yellow, one of the most creative people in this whole city. This is Daniel, one of my business partners, the person who pays everybody in the UT right here in the camo. So if you ever ask me for money, I'll say no, but I'll tell you ask Daniel. And that's Celeste next to him. And Celeste is one of the as the top dogs at Live Nation. She'll never tell you, but if you ever wanted a job at Live Nation, this is a good job person to talk to. So there's a lot of creatives around you. We just never talk to each other. So those are people I would tell you if you're really creative in this town and you want to meet somebody. These are people to just make friends with, buy them a drink or something, make them buy you one.
Well, speaking of that, before I dive into our next or my conclusions for this panel, I want to introduce two beautiful people, Tiffany Sabla and Checo. Checo is what they call him El Mixólogo in Mexico. He's a very well-known mixologist, and Tiffany is a sommelier, mixologist, and chef. And they've prepared something for us today. Do you want to share?
What's tequila?
Yeah.
Hi everyone. So we created some cocktails for the show with this, which is Carabuena Tequila. So right now we have a tequila spritzer, we want to call it. So it basically has tequila, mandarin, blanc de blanc, which is sparkling wine, and a little bit of thyme. So we have a little bit for us and a little bit to share. If anybody wants some, feel free to go over there in a little bit. We'll be happy to hand some out as well. Cheers. Enjoy.
Somebody get up and grab a drink with us, please.
I do have a question over here. Well, first, I would like to appreciate your vulnerability and your time for today. I do have a question as for someone that does want to start entrepreneurship. What is there any kind of advice that you would give to someone that does want to start in that field and that does have a vision of helping the community? What is your advice? How do you start? You have this vision going. What is the first step? What is next? What should I be thinking about right now?
Stop being afraid. Don't talk about it. Be about it. Nobody knows what the fuck they're doing out in this real world. Like, we're all figuring things out at the same time. Nobody's been to a bank account in the way that you think they've been. Everybody's figuring out their taxes at the same time. Stop letting anything and everything stop you, and just start doing it, and just start being out there. I know how good of a dancer you are. Why aren't you finding other good dancers in the community and making people pay for that thing? So, like, stop being afraid and letting anything in the world stop you, because nobody's going to be there to make sure that you do it. You have to be the one who sells yourself the best. So just do it, and never be ashamed of like having to ask the question. Never be ashamed of like literally not knowing what the hell you're doing. When he was talking about net 90, that means if he has $100 in the bank, I'm telling him he has to pay $90 of it, and I'll pay him in 90 days. Imagine if that $90 meant that I was paying all 5 of these people in the front row first, and then I was getting paid 90 days later, and I had $10 to my name to pay all my bills. That's what a net 90 does to people like us, right? So that's what he's talking about. That means he had to figure out how to handle that. So like, nobody in the world knows what we're doing. No, we all just kind of smile and act like it. Edgar, I'm sure, didn't know he was gonna have to deal with that shit.
Yeah, absolutely not. I mean, especially when you're opening up your own business, there's no guidebook or there's no rule book to be like, hey, this is how you run your business. Every single day, you're figuring shit out. Like, for us, especially with the restaurant, we didn't obviously have any financial advisors. There was no board to tell us like, you need to be managing your money this way. Like, we literally just figuring things out every single day. But I mean, the biggest thing, like what Edward says, like, just get out there. It's like, really, if you truly fucking love what you are doing, like, it every single day. I mean, it sounds corny to say, but it doesn't feel like work. I mean, you just feel like you get to enter this creative space that you get to enter every single day and just flow. Like, when we are creating things at the restaurant, I hate putting limitations on things. I hate being like, oh, it has to do this. When you put yourself into this box, I feel like it diminishes creativity. And having that that uncompromised vision of whatever it is that you want to do, like that's all that's going to matter, because you can only look at yourself in the mirror every single day and be like, hey, you are, you know, do you really love what this is, and is it bringing you happiness? And if it is, like, seriously, every single day will just kind of go, and like the money will figure itself out. It'll snowball eventually. Like, you know, there's some days early on where, you know, we were very scared, but like as you continue growing and just keep pushing and having those networks of community around you, it will all just like to slowly just kind of figure itself out. And yeah, you know, it's not going to be an overnight thing. Nothing ever is. You know, there's no kingdom that was built overnight unless you're coming from like rich people who got a very fortunate background against you. But if you're not, if you're growing up black and brown, like a lot of us are here in this room, you know, it's going to be a fucking struggle. It's going to be an uphill battle, but, you know, just continue chipping away at it every single day, little by little, and shit will figure itself out.
And don't be ashamed of your W's. Like, if you take that first job and you're still working full time somewhere else, and that means you have to go work at 11 o'clock at night to practice like the dance you're gonna do, don't be afraid because like you worked 20 hours on something and somebody paid you $100. Like, don't be afraid to be like happy for your first W's. Like, I remember literally my first $100 check we got from somebody. And like to ask other people in your community, like AJ, who's sitting back there, who's doing other dance things and killing it, like reach out to people like that and find them, and like figure out what other people are doing and ask the right questions like you just did tonight. But like, people will shame you for taking a dub that you think, oh, I should have made 100,000 that day. Fuck it, you made what you made and you did it, and over time it will come to you and you'll win, and then all of a sudden those people will be calling you to ask you to come do their things. You'll be like, I'm busy. Like,
Well, here's the thing. For me personally, I struggle a lot with social media. I'm a very private person, but when you meet me, it's like I'm really happy to communicate with you. I'm really happy to put myself, you know, like I don't know, I like to be public, but when it comes to social media, I'm very private, if that makes sense. I don't know how to keep that, like split that in a way, because whenever I put myself out there, I put my whole self out there, but really I have this block, almost like this shield in front of me, where I'm like, I don't want to share all of myself on social media. But when I want to, for example, when I want to pursue my entrepreneurship and I want to put my business out there, there's this block and this weird, like, there's this me and there's this me who I want to post, but also it's like I want to keep myself like private. Does that make sense at all? Like, I don't know how to differentiate that, and I don't know how to split that, if that makes sense.
Look, we're the same in that aspect. I can share for hours when I'm in petit comité in small people, but I don't like, I'm not like the master behind you that can just speak to any rock. But sometimes it's okay to ask for help. So if it's not your forte, it's okay to be humble. It's okay to say I don't know. It's okay to ask and raise your hand and reach out to the people that are around you that you see strategic, and ask for help, because we don't all have those talents. And we were talking about this thing that once you start, you know, a lot of people tell me, you know, Victor was telling me yesterday, why don't you podcast? Why don't you do these things? Because I'm very deep about creative entrepreneurship. I've been studying it for 8 years deeply, and I don't do it because of right now the tendency is, once you start doing content, you can't stop. You have to do it, or else the algorithm doesn't like you and stuff. So if you don't know to ask for help for people who actually like to do it, you know, it's shooting yourself in the foot. You know, I'm gonna, during this event later on, I'm gonna share with you what I call the creative business plan. It's something I wrote for the Secretary of Economy of Mexico in 2017, and we're gonna be basically launching a book. It's like a notebook, because we are evolving. So generally, a creative entrepreneur is very different than a traditional entrepreneur, because entrepreneurs generally are thinking about money, a lot of them, very consistently. And for example, it's like, I want to sell my taco business to a corporate, and that's their mission, because they are money driven. But a true creative entrepreneur is doing tacos because he loves to do tacos, or loves the experience, or loves that. You know, that's a huge differentiation factor. So the creative business plan that I wrote, basically is this evolution. It's like a blueprint of your business, so you can understand it yourself, and you can actually figure it out and start getting to a point where you can actually like put dollars and cents. These are my prices, my costs. These are opportunity areas of opportunities. This is my community, or what I call my mediums that will help me do things and help see that path and help you look back and see, look, oh, I had a cost of $30 for this product, and now I have a cost of 18, and this is how I got it better. But it is, we do have to take sometimes a technical approach, and I do believe that the future lies in that technical approach, so we can actually systematize our creative entrepreneurship within the boundaries of not having boundaries of creative.
I think if you were meeting with me, you would get mad at me because I would say, stop making excuses and start making solutions. And anybody who's on my team will tell you, like, we fight all the time about it because they're like, they give me an excuse and I don't really care. What's the solution? So for you, if you're not good at social media, so what? Like, what's the solution? Like, why don't I see you outside more? Then, like, if your solution is being in real life, then like, be in real life. But like, it's solution oriented, and if you keep allowing yourself to make every excuse that's out there, then you'll stop yourself, and nobody's gonna be there to pick you up and say, come on, and beg you to go along. That's on your end to do all those things. So it's figuring out, okay, I'm not good at socials, so like, I don't like to post my whole life in socials. If you know me personally, you know, like, I don't really talk about all those things. I only recently had to, but I think you have to be solution oriented in everything. And so now it's okay, I'm not good at that, then here's what I'm good at, let me go do those things, and just doing it. And like, not waiting to say like, okay, let me stay out of the game for 2 months while somebody else wins, like, because they were good at going out and doing the things that I actually like to do. Like, so what? You should do it too.
And also, I would say too, from like, you're saying about like, you don't like putting yourself out there. I feel like, honest to God, like, at least for us with our socials, we've noticed those are the biggest things that we've gotten traction on is when we're just like very vulnerable about most shit. Because people really connect with that. People really connect. It's like that human experience that you're able to connect with, where you're like, we all know like this isn't this perfect life that's on Instagram, that we want to put out there. Like, sure, but for us, when we've put ourselves out there, we're like, fuck y'all, like, we're about to go out of business. Like, holy shit, like, people are able to see that vulnerability. People, that's some real shit, and like having all your stuff out there, it can't all be W's, having those things where you're very real about certain shit that might be going on in your life. People really connect with that. People are able to see that and feel
I
that.
can connect with that because I really want to be I don't really want to be, I'm just a genuine person, so I want to put that out there. You know what I mean? Like, just like you said, like, I just want to be genuine. I want to be me. I want to be that person where I'm just out there, but it's so difficult because I'm such a private person. I have my friends, I have my group of friends. So I appreciate that. Really quick, just to kind of close out my question, what about branding? How did you come up with your own branding for your business? How did you, what was the first step for that? Because that's really difficult for me. I like a lot of things. I like spunky, I like classic, I like clean kind of aesthetic, but I just don't know how to nail it. You know what I mean? Like, I know what I like, but I just don't know how to brand and how to pinpoint a certain aesthetic or a certain kind of vibe. You know what I mean?
I always ask myself, would I buy it?
What you buy?
Would I buy it? Like, it's easy for, like, if you go ask somebody online, like, what looks good, blah, 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 and you're like, man, that looks corny. But would you buy it is the biggest question, because there's somebody else out there who looks like you, who does what you do, who would be your friend, who likes the things you like, probably your friends. Would they buy it? And if you think it's the best, then like, go with it. And if the world is telling you no, fuck it. Like, you're obviously cool, so go with it. Like, nobody told you to wear cool glasses today, but you thought they were cool, so you did it and said fuck it and rode with it, and now here you are. So like, why not do that to your own stuff? So like, if you like it, go with it.
Thank you. Perfect. I appreciate y'all's time.
Thank you so much to my two Austin Latino brothers, and thank you so much for sharing. Thank you. I know this is a new thing. Again, this for us is kind of like one of the technical approaches of sharing, systematizing the sharing and making it common for us to get up here and become vulnerable. And I thank you so much for that. And I think it helps us a lot. Gracias.
I am now master of the world.